Saturday, September 9th. Life goes on all right. When I came downstairs for breakfast, Mom and Dad were arguing. Mom was sitting on a stool at the kitchen counter. Dad and Eric were standing in the doorway ready to exit. Eric was letting Dad do all the talking. Look, there's nothing wrong with me taking Eric to practice this morning. Mom clearly did not agree. You don't schedule a football practice on the morning of your team captain's funeral. It's a private funeral. We were not invited to attend that funeral. That's not the point. You should show respect for the family by canceling practice on the morning of the funeral. Dad had heard enough. Well, Coach Warner did not think that was appropriate, so he didn't do it. The season begins in 1 week, and we need to get out there. You need to get out there. That's right. Every team in this country is practicing this morning, and so are we. And while we're at it, Coach Warner did not schedule this practice on the morning of the funeral. These weekend practices have been scheduled all along. It's not fair for you to say that the coach doesn't care about his players or that he doesn't care about Mike Costello just because he continues to do this job. Mom didn't reply, so Dad and Eric completed their exit. Mom's final word on the subject was to me. Coach Warner cares so much about his players that he pushes them out into the lightning every day. Joey called at 2:30. Mom answered the phone. She offered to drive us, so Joey showed up at our door at 2:45. Mom asked him how the services went. He said fine, and that was that. We didn't talk about it again. Life went on. We got into Mom's car and drove to the carnival. I was curious to finally see the town of Tangerine. In the time we've lived there, we've driven in every direction but this one. We've gone west to the supermarket, south to the mall, north to the schools, but never east to the town. As we headed up Route 89, Joey said, "My dad told me that this all used to be tangerine groves, as far as the eye could see." It was the tangerine capital of the world. Mom turned off the highway at Route 22 and drove east through the citrus groves. The air was filled with a remarkable scent. Joey said, "What is that smell? That's gross." I said, "You're crazy. I love that smell. That's the citrus. Something is in bloom now, huh, Mom?" Mom said, "I don't know, honey." We drove for another mile. We passed a cluster of lime green houses made out of cement block. I said, "Check out that color, Mom. You'd better notify the architectural committee." Mom was not amused. "This isn't a development, Paul." "Then how come the houses are all the same color?" Mom thought about that and replied, "Maybe you're right. Maybe this is some kind of early development. Maybe the owners of the packing plant built those houses for their workers." "The migrant workers?" "No, I don't think so. The migrant workers would have come and picked fruit for a few weeks and then move on. But there must have been permanent workers, citrus packers, who lived here year-round. Like Joey was saying, this used to be the tangerine capital of the world. Now the tangerine industry is dead. Look, over there, that's the old packing plant." It was strange to see an old packing plant, to see old anything, but it was also comforting to hear that something around here has a history, that something actually belongs here. It makes sense. I can see how it worked. The citrus packers walked from those lime green cement block houses into that packing plant, that huge and magnificent structure. It must have been built, red, brick by brick, to be the most magnificent building the workers had ever seen, like a European cathedral. So why did it stop working? When did it all go wrong? Whose fault was it? Maybe the people from the lime green houses just got tired of walking into this building every morning. Maybe they stopped seeing how magnificent it was, and now it's gone. It's all over. Someplace else is now the tangerine capital of the world. We didn't see much else of the town, because suddenly, right in front of us, were the rides and tents of the carnival. Low rent was a compliment for this thing. It was set up in a big field of dirt next to a sign that read Tangerine Flea Market every Sunday. Mom dropped us off in the parking lot, which was another field of dirt across the road. She said, "Are you boys sure you want to get out here?" "Yeah," Joey laughed. Maybe he thought Mom was kidding. Mom sighed. "Okay. When do you want to be picked up?" "I don't know. Joey, what do you say, 7 o'clock? Joey thought about it. "Yeah, that's cool." Mom called, "All right, I'll see you two right here on this spot at 7 o'clock. Be careful." "We will, Mom. Bye." As we waited to cross the busy road, Joey handed me a discount ticket and said, "They're from Coach Walski." Just outside the entranceway, I saw a group of guys with a soccer ball. They were good. 3 of them were doing the juggling bit with a ball, like Tommy Acoso does. But they were passing it back and forth, too. I stopped to watch for a minute and called a kid over to me. "Hey, give me one of those tickets." "I only got one," I said. "Yeah, so I only need one. Hand it over." Joey grabbed my elbow and hustled me away. "Come on, man. Don't mess around with those guys. They're from Tangerine Middle. So? Don't talk to them and don't look at them." We handed over our tickets and passed through a turnstile. They have gangs in Tangerine Middle School. They have kids with guns, man. Real gangstas. Some of them have AK-47s. No way. Hey, don't believe me. Just don't mess with them. 'Cause I ain't bailing you out. We walked quickly past the octopus and another ride that looked like a swinging axe pendulum. Joey called out, "There they are. There's Kara and Carrie and the guys." I was thrilled. I had been secretly hoping this would happen. Kara came up and put her arm around Joey right away. Unfortunately, nobody, Carrie included, paid much attention to me. The three guys who I sort of knew from classes and lunch were all talking about going to a freak show in the back of the carnival. Kara and Carrie were saying things like, "Oh, gross," and "No way." Everybody was disappointed when we actually got inside the freak show, called Wonders of the World. Everybody except me. I was really fascinated as I prowled through the dark, partitioned rooms of the exhibits. They were mostly photos, but there were some wax statues too. The exhibits had names like the woman with the third eye, the Buffalo Man, and the frozen Fraulein. I lost the rest of the group when I stopped to read about the boy who never grew. According to the sign, this boy stopped growing at the age of 5, but he went on to live to the age of 89, and although he was studied by the top doctors in Europe, he remains a mystery to this day. No one ever discovered what happened to him to cause this strange affliction. I peered into the eyes of the photo for a long, long time. When I came out of the Wonders of the World, blinking in the sun, my classmates were all gone. The guys who I had seen at the entrance with the soccer ball were there, waiting to go in. They were too busy karate kicking at each other to notice me. I turned left and headed toward the big double Ferris wheel. I watched it being loaded seat by seat. The wheel rotated up, and I saw Kara and Joey close together on a seat. It rotated again, and I saw Carrie. She was sitting with one of the guys from the group, a guy named Adam, a guy who doesn't wear glasses and who knows how to talk. I spun around and walked the other way, eventually stopping at a snow cone place. After about half an hour by myself, I caught up with the group again. No one had noticed that I was gone. Carrie wound up going on the Caterpillar with Adam, too. I didn't go on any rides. 7 o'clock finally came. I went and stood at the entrance. I could see that Mom was already parked in the lot. Joey kept me waiting for 10 minutes, then ran up and said, "You ready?" "Yeah, I've been ready." We crossed the road and climbed into the air-conditioned car. Mom cried out, "Look at that!" We looked, and we saw the gang of soccer kids from Tangerine Middle all climbing into the back of a light green classic Ford pickup truck. "Yeah, cool truck," Joey and I said, almost at the same time. "No, Mom continued. Look at the truck and tell me what's wrong with this picture." We looked again, and I noticed the words, Tomas Cruz Groves, Tangerine, Florida, written on the door. "Do you mean that they spelled Thomas wrong?" "Honestly, Paul," she snapped, "can't you be serious when I ask you a question?" "But I am being serious." Mom pointed at the pile of kids who were now riding toward the exit. "Seatbelts. They're not wearing any seatbelts, not one of them. How could they? They're all bouncing around in the back of that truck like a bunch of golden retrievers." "Well, that's up to them, right?" "No, that is not up to them. That is against the law. One good bump and they'll all break their necks. Why do we bother passing safety laws? People will still throw kids into the back of a truck and then drive them out onto the highway." Mom drove in silence all the way home, angry about the driver of the pickup truck. It doesn't take much these days to make her angry. I was feeling pretty miserable myself, about Carrie Gardner, about soccer, about my whole life here. I remembered the face of the boy who never grew, the face of that 89-year-old little boy. I remembered the fear in his eyes. I know that fear. It's my fear. They may as well stick me in there next to him. A picture came to me, nasty yet satisfying. I could stop trying to be what everyone else is and accept being a freak. They could open a new exhibit starring me, a modern exhibit called The Child Who Wouldn't Listen. Stomach Cramps Boy, who went swimming right after lunch, Refrigerator Door Boy, sealed forever to stay fresh, and Eclipse Boy, studied by the greatest doctors in Europe, but still a mystery to this day. Monday, September 11th. I was up for a long time last night, listening to the rain. It was still raining when Mom dropped me off at the guardhouse. I stood next to Joey, but neither one of us had much to say. Lake Windsor Middle School is a very uncomfortable place to be when it's raining. Hundreds of kids crowd into the walkways between classes. The kids with umbrellas smack them into each other. The kids without umbrellas panic because they're trapped in the cold, pounding rain, unable to move behind the kids with umbrellas. I was one of the kids with umbrellas, even though the coolest guys don't carry them. Of course, the coolest guys don't have to take off their glasses and dry them before they can see again either. It was still pouring during the third period when a kid came into my math class in P19. He was soaking wet and holding one of those wooden office passes. The teacher, Mr. Ward, called me up to the front and said, "You're wanted in Mr. Murrow's office right away." I let the kid with the pass share my umbrella as we crossed over the ocean of mud and ducked into the building. When we got to Mr. Murrow's office, I noticed Mrs. Gates and Coach Walski standing with him next to his desk. Lined up on a long couch against the opposite wall were Joey, Adam, and the other two guys from our group at the carnival. I went over and sat with them. Mr. Murrow started speaking. He was angry. "I want you boys to tell me exactly what happened at the carnival on Saturday." He paused and then added, "You were all at the carnival on Saturday, were you not?" Nobody answered until Joey spoke up and said, "Yes, sir, we were there." Joey didn't say anything else, so Coach Walski intervened. We know that you were there, boys, because I gave you all tickets. That's how we've all come to be in Mr. Murrow's office today. Now, maybe you don't know what this is all about, so I'll tell you. Mrs. Gates got a phone call on Saturday from the sheriff's department. Mr. Murrow picked up the story from here. His tone was more reasonable now, more like Coach Walski's. The Tangerine County Sheriff's Department received a complaint from the owners of the carnival that one of their exhibits was vandalized by boys from a soccer team. They called Mrs. Gates and asked her to help find out exactly what happened to the exhibit. He checked the name on a piece of paper, the Wonders of the World exhibit. Joey was quick to respond, "Hey, we didn't do anything wrong. We were in the exhibit, yeah, but we didn't do anything to it." Everybody on the couch agreed except me. I knew immediately what had happened and who had done it. I really didn't want to rat out those soccer guys, but I was the only one who had seen them going in. It had to be me. I raised my hand up limply and said, "I think I know who did it." All three adults turned to me. Mr. Murrow said, "Okay, who did it?" When I came out of the exhibit, I saw a bunch of guys from Tangerine Middle going in. I think they were soccer players. Why do you think that? Well, sir, they were carrying a soccer ball. The three adults looked at each other and then they smiled. The rest of us started to relax. Joey said, "Yeah, I saw those guys too. On the way in and on the way out. They were bad news, no question about it." Coach Walski said to Joey, "Did you recognize any of them from our game last year?" Joey was certain. "Oh, yeah. They were definitely from that team. I think they were all starters. I never saw them going into the freak show, so I didn't know who you were talking about at first. But yeah, definitely, they're the guys you're looking for." Mrs. Gates seemed relieved and happy. She said, "Thank you very much, boys. I guess we've solved this mystery. I wish they were all so easy to solve." Mr. Murrow added, "I'm glad it was just a case of mistaken identity. I didn't think you guys would do anything like this." "All right, why don't you go ahead and get back to class, and thank you, too, Coach." Coach Walski told him, "I know the coach at Tangerine Middle. Her name's Betty Bright. Call Betty and tell her what happened. She'll round those kids up." Mr. Murrow picked up the phone as we all piled into the hall. Nobody said anything. When we got to the outside door, I asked Joey if he wanted to walk under my umbrella. Adam and the other two kids were too cool to have umbrellas, so they took off and ran through the rain toward their portables. I stopped, still, when we got outside the building, right at the entrance to the boardwalk. This whole thing was really bothering me, so I said to Joey, "Hey, we ratted those guys out." Joey seemed puzzled. "Yeah? So what? They're never going to know who we are." "Oh, no? Who knows what Murrow's going to say to this Betty Bright? He might tell our names." "No way. It's not like we're testifying in court or filling out affidavits. Our names aren't on anything." "Listen to yourself. You sound like a lawyer." "Oh, give me a break, Fisher. Do you want to take the rap for something that you didn't do?" "No." Joey paused for a moment and asked, "So how come you took off at the carnival?" "I don't know." I paused too. I finally said, "That Adam kid, is he going out with Carrie Gardner? Is that the deal?" "Adam? Adam's a geek." "So what does that mean? Is he going out with her or isn't he?" "Not that I know of. Why? Do you want to go out with her?" "No. Why should I?" "Well, hey, she obviously likes geeks. Why shouldn't you?" I stood there, trying to think of a comeback, when suddenly I heard a whooshing sound, like the sound you get when you open a vacuum-sealed can of peanuts. Then the brown water that had puddled up all over the field began to move. It began to run toward the back portables, like someone had pulled the plug out of a giant bathtub. Next came a crack, crack, cracking sound. The boards began to come apart, and the loose mud under the walkways began to slide toward the giant bathtub drain. One after another, the doors of the portables opened, and the teachers looked out, staring into the dense rain, trying to spot the cause of all this commotion. Mr. Ward opened the door of Portable 19. He stepped out onto the porch and looked around back. Across the field, the kids from Miss Alvarez's portable came out with their belongings in single file like they were supposed to do in a fire drill. Other teachers saw that and started their kids out too, but suddenly there was a larger sound, a larger whoosh, turned every head and opened every eye in that rainy field. Then the walkways started to heave up and down and making terrible splintering noises. Immediately, kids started screaming and vaulting over the handrails, landing in the ankle-deep mud. Another whoosh and more violent cracking sounds followed. Then every 7th and 8th grader started to pour out of those portables, some still calm, some panicking. There was instant and total chaos in the back row, the one nearest to the football field, because the portables themselves were starting to break apart and move. The kids came diving out, jamming in the doorways, pushing into the backs of other kids, knocking each other flat on the disintegrating boardwalk. They knocked each other into the moving mudslide that was now swirling in a circle around them. "What is it?" I yelled to Joey. "An earthquake?" "No. Sinkhole, man. It's a sinkhole. It's opening up under the field. Look at 19. I looked and saw the entire portable being swallowed up by the mud, its roof now where its porch steps should be. I yelled, "That's my math class!" Joey shouted back over the din, "They must all be trapped in there." I didn't even think about it. I yelled back, "Come on." We ditched my umbrella and jumped out of the way as the first panicked wave reached the building. We pushed around the bottleneck of screaming kids forming at the door. Stepping carefully, we sloshed and fought our way through the mud to Portable 19. We joined some 8th graders in a kind of bucket brigade extending from the field down into the sinkhole. They were grabbing the hands of the kids who were trapped in the portable and pulling them up step by step to the edge of the hole. Some of those guys must have been 10 feet below ground level at this point, and the sinkhole was still deepening and spreading. The mud continued to swirl around us in a rapid clockwise motion. Empty of kids, Portable 16 fell right over, roof first, into the far end of the hole. Portables 20 and 21 were balanced on the rim of the crater about to go. Joey and I dug our heels into the mud about halfway down toward the bottom of the hole. We pulled and grabbed at kids as they made their way up the slippery incline to the top. Some of them were so frightened that they didn't want to let go of us, but we pushed them along anyway, up to the next guys. I lost my balance twice and fell into the mud, but I managed to right myself quickly. My glasses were so caked with mud that I could no longer see anything clearly. I must have pulled 20 kids up before I heard Mr. Ward's voice yell, "That's it! That's everybody! Let's get out of here!" Those of us in the middle of the line helped the guys from the bottom to climb out. Then they pulled us up. I heard Mr. Ward yell again, "There goes 17 and 18!" And I heard the sounds of Portables 17 and 18 splitting apart. The whooshing was getting louder, and I felt afraid for the first time. Afraid that we might all get sucked down and drown in the mud. We moved out in a tight group, holding onto each other through a field of moving slop and splintering boards. Finally, we pushed our way inside the main building. Out of the rain, I tried to clean my glasses on my sopping, filthy shirt. No way. Someone snatched the glasses away from me right out of my hands. It was a big guy with a towel, and he proceeded to wipe them clean. He said, "Mars, my man, good work out there." I knew that voice. I said, "Thanks, Gino." He placed them carefully on my head and said, "It sucks what they did to you, Mars. I told Coach Waskey that too. You're the best 7th grade. Four-eyed Martian goalie in the entire county. Thanks, Gino. I appreciate that." He started to move on with his towel, but he turned to add, "They should have bent the rules for you, Mars. They bend the rules for other guys, lots of them, so they should have bent them for you." I watched Gino head off into the sea of muddy and miserable kids. Sirens started to wail outside. Then the loudspeakers crackled to life. "This is Mrs. Gates. We are experiencing an extreme emergency. Please listen carefully and do exactly as I say. First, any injured student should come immediately to the office. No student who is not injured should attempt to come to the office at this time. All other students should move calmly and quietly to their afternoon bus stops or pickup points. School buses have already been dispatched to drive you home. If you cannot go home at this time, you should proceed out the front entrance and walk to the high school gymnasium." Mrs. Gates repeated the speech twice more as I worked my way out the front door and turned left to my bus stop. I hooked up with Joey again there. He said he'd heard that there were kids with broken arms and legs all over the office. A convoy of ambulances, police cars, and fire engines turned into the entranceway, their sirens wailing and their lights flashing. The rain continued to hammer down, pounding on the long line of kids trudging north around the football stadium toward the high school gymnasium. Our bus pulled into the circular drive, and we climbed on board patiently and politely, slopping mud all over the aisle floor and the seats. The bus driver said she had instructions to take all of us right to our doors. I was shivering, and my teeth were chattering by the time I got home. I let myself in through the side door to the garage and went into the laundry room. I peeled off my shirt, socks, shoes, and pants and dumped them all into the washing machine. Then, wearing only my undershorts and streaked head to foot with mud, like one of the lost guys from the Amazon rainforest, I went in to break the news to Mom. Monday, September 11th. Later. At 4 o'clock, Grandmom and Grandpop called from Ohio to tell us we were on the national news. On CNN, so Mom turned it on. They already had live footage shot by a news helicopter. It showed the whole campus, then it zeroed in on the field of portables and the focal point of the sinkhole. I was surprised and even a little disappointed at how small the crater was, only about 50 yards across. I was also surprised to hear that only a dozen kids were treated at the Tangerine County Medical Center, and all for minor injuries. Nobody was dead, nobody was even kept overnight for observation. The local news at 6 o'clock opened with the same helicopter shot, but they also had interviews with Mrs. Gates, Mr. Ward, the sheriff, and a group of 8th graders who had been in the Portable 19 Rescue Brigade. They were followed by a geologist from the University of Florida, Dr. Judith something. She explained that the above normal amounts of storm runoff rain had caused an underground cavern to form and then collapse. When it collapsed, everything on the surface above it collapsed too, in this case, the area of the field that contained portables 16 through 21. The reason this sinkhole had done such massive damage to the school was that all the portables were connected by wooden walkways. Yeah, tell me about it. All that cracking and splintering, none of the news coverage could recapture that. Dad came home angry and agitated. Reporters had been calling Dad's office, the Department of Civil Engineering, asking how a school could be built over a huge sinkhole. Old Charlie Burns was out of the office at a stock car race, so Dad had to take the heat. Dad tried to find the geological surveys for the Lake Windsor campus, but he couldn't. He had to tell the reporters that he didn't know where they were. One reporter had the nerve to ask him, "How can you not know what's going on in your own office?" He was especially angry about that. The 11 o'clock news featured the same exact reports. That's when I got a call from Joey. He said, "I heard that a whole home ec class got buried alive in Portable 18. They're just not telling us." "No way. Who told you that?" "Kara. She's hysterical." "Yeah, you're right. She is. I gotta go." And he hung up. I gotta go too. I'm wiped out, but I feel good about today. I faced down danger today, maybe even death. When a disaster struck, we all had to do something. In a way, we all had to become someone. I'm not saying I was a hero. All I did was slide around in mud and try to pull people up. But I didn't panic and run either. I'm still afraid of Eric. I'm afraid of Arthur now too. But today, I wasn't a coward. And that counts for something.